Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. We have a very fun episode for you guys today on today's show here. We are talking waiver wire pickups. We are talking contender pretenders. We're talking keep or cut. We have a lot of things to go over. Week 2 was another crazy, fun, fantastic week here. And like I said, we have a lot to get through. So, of course, let me introduce the crew here. We have our main man, Jibs, back with us again. Coach Jibs, what's going on, brother?
It's going good, guys. I had to make a guest appearance in-house for missing the last couple of weeks. So, God's good, doing the good thing. Hopefully, Fantasy Week 3 gives me more things to be happy about. I got absolutely cleared in the second half of the slate yesterday.
Yeah, me too. And of course, we have Coach John all the way down in Florida. He probably should just come up to Jersey now. So
I'm jealous now. I need to come hang with the boys in the studio. This is nuts. This is
I would be a lot of fun, that's for sure. So that'd be cool. But how are you, John?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm 2-0 in the fantasy in the coaches league, so I'm good there. But I'm getting Wally pipped around everywhere else, so I don't know what's going on in fantasy this year.
What you didn't do this past week?
I didn't win. No.
The Patriots didn't beat my Dolphins. That's what they didn't do this week.
Oh man,
the Patriots can't beat a cold. I'll tell you that much. The Patriots are in trouble.
Look at that.
Your team's 0-2 against the other coaches right now.
Yes,
so
sir.
You better take your team to step up. So.
20 years of greatness. I'll take my lickings. I'll take my lickings for a little while.
We actually all play each other this year, so that's pretty fun. So it's gonna be a good contact this week. So, but week 2, guys, was a lot of craziness. Obviously, we have 2 games tonight. We have a game in like half an hour and a half. It's gonna be great. So hopefully you guys won your championships based off what we were going to tell you guys over on Thursday and over on the Sunday show in the morning there. So we'll get right into it today, guys. So we have some news to talk about, a lot of news, actually. A lot of injuries to talk about here. Some of them are, we'll wait and see. They might miss a game, but for the most part, we're okay. Odell Beckham Jr., ankle injury in the second half. He missed the second half of the game with the Ravens there. I think he should be fine. Darnell Mooney, knee injury, missed the second half of the Bears game. I don't know what's going on with that yet. So that I know is still outstanding. Whether or not something is to come out of that injury there, we'll have to wait and see. Logan Thomas, nasty helmet-to-helmet hit in that game there. He left the game in the third quarter here. Likely somewhat of a concussion, I'm sure. Likely to miss week 3. We don't know, but imagine he's going to miss week 3. Who knows? Dave Montgomery, thigh injury late in the fourth quarter in that Lions game there. They're saying it's week to week. I also heard that it could be a few weeks. So we'll have to wait and see how that works this week here. I would say he's probably going to miss week 3, but we'll wait and see on that. Anthony Richardson, concussion out early in the second quarter there. Gardner Minshew filled in for him. He's in the concussion protocol currently. Devontae Adams, concussion. I believe he's fine, though. I don't think he's in protocol, which is great for us. Jalen Waddle, concussion protocol as well. Late in the third quarter of that Dolphins game. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to affect his status. Savon Ahmed, groin injury, missed the second half of that Dolphins game as well. I don't think it's severe. So big one here now. Saquon Barkley, leg injury, out Thursday Night Football pretty much already. Potentially 2 more weeks. Do you guys think this is going to really just bring down this Giants offense any more than what it is? Or, I mean, how do you guys feel about this?
How
do you feel about his dynasty value? That's a big thing. We already know that he's going to miss week 3. He should be back, but is this concerning that you want to just move on from Barkley and dynasty? I know it's hard now with an injury, but I mean, is this something to tell you moving forward, guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's always concerning because you have, a running back who's battled through injuries his whole career. He's now on a 1-year deal. He's about to hit the free agent market, and week 2, he's already sort of dealing with an ankle injury and banged up. And so, yeah, I mean, it stinks, obviously, for your redraft. You're going to miss him for probably 2-3 weeks. And then Dynasty, I don't know. I think you have to start getting anxious. You have to start getting nervous that, maybe Saquon Barkley isn't this like locked and loaded, top 8, top 5 running back for the next foreseeable future. I mean, who knows what happens next year? Maybe he battles injury this whole year and he's struggling for a contract and gets a deal, another 1-year prove it deal. And I don't know. It could just, I could see things going sour for Saquon Barkley in Dynasty, just as easily as I see it going real well. So if you have offers to get out, if you're not a contender and you can trade Saquon for some, Tajay Spears plus some picks, and maybe that's something you consider. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's not fun when this guy's constantly banged up.
Not at all.
Yeah, his dynasty value is it's on a cliff right now because with the contract, he's getting into that RB age range where you kind of lose some for that production. He had the injury history already. If I was not contending, I probably would still hold on to him a little bit longer for him just to come back and see what you could get out of him. You'll probably still have 3 more weeks or 2 more weeks before your trade deadlines happen anyway. So you don't want to just sell him on this you don't want to sell him for a nickel. So obviously I would definitely want to get younger and move on to a younger running back. But for now, it's a nightmare. And the Giants, hopefully they could keep up with this passing attack that they found in the second half yesterday. Otherwise, they're going to just be running stagnant.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not great for his dynasty value to see him get hurt once again here. You have to play it pretty smart when you plan on selling him. I don't think I'd sell him right in the fact that now he's injured currently, but it's something to keep in mind that you need to start preparing now and start looking for trades that you might want to potentially go after there. Hopefully he's only out 1 week, but we'll come up with some replacements for you guys today. Chase Edmonds, knee injury. He is already out 4 to 6 weeks. Again, Chase Edmonds was not really anything impactful for fantasy. Deontay Johnson officially goes on the IR the next 4 weeks here. So wish I would have done it this past week. So we only missed 1 game, but we're getting 5 games, at least missed 6 games if you can keep the bye week from Deontay Johnson, which definitely sucked because I really expected him to have a bounce back season. And of course, the last one, Joe Burrow might miss game 3 with the calf injury that he suffered over the weekend. How concerned are you about this Joe Burrow injury for this season alone now?
Very, very, very concerned. He missed the whole preseason with this calf injury. He looked bad week 1, looked bad week 2, and now he's retweaked this calf injury. Yep, I would be for Dynasty. Obviously, I think you're totally fine. Joe Burrow's great.
Sure, be good.
But redraft, you got to get a little anxious that this could just be a really down year for Joe Burrow, and you drafted him. You drafted him high.
Yeah, I'm literally besides myself. This is my first 4 picks in my redraft league with Steve. Barkley, Cup, Burrow, Watson. Yeah, so I just been running the waiver wire, guys. So
good thing we're on the waiver wire show.
I need you, baby.
No, we'll have to wait and see about Joe Burrow. It's definitely a concern. To be honest, I would be looking to get out of that situation if someone is willing to give me Tua, Geno Smith, Jared Goff. I honestly would be looking to get out and use that name value on Joe Burrow because calf injury is just not going to go away. And if he's got to take time to heal, it's going to take multiple weeks for him to actually heal from a calf injury. So I'd be looking to get out of that situation as quick as I possibly can right now. Dynasty, again, he might not have a great year, but he should be back in as a top 5 quarterback next year. So there's no worries on that.
Poor Higgins and poor Chase.
Yes, man. That would be bad. Jake Browling, his name, or Browling will be the starting quarterback if that was the case this Monday night. Again, it's going to suck for week 3 because we won't know maybe until Monday whether or not he is going to be out or not. So a lot of fun there for us guys in first week of fantasy. So let's get into the main topic today. So again, we're going to start with keep or cut. And again, we'll make it real simple, guys. We're going to just say whether we're going to keep him or not, and we'll move on. Antonio Gibson's under 6 fantasy points in both games. Are you keeping him or cutting him?
I just think I'm still keeping him because I do think early in the season running backs are valuable because injuries and stuff happen. So I'm still okay hanging on to Antonio Gibson.
I'm down to keep him. I know he's not getting that much run, but like John said, like there has to be someone pretty damn good I'm picking up off the waiver wire to get rid of Antonio Gibson. And when we get to our list, there's probably just one or two. So
Right.
I'm not dumping him yet.
Yeah, I actually cut him in a league already once. One of my leagues after this past week because I wanted to pick up some other player. Again, he's fine. He's a fine running back. And obviously we don't like to cut backup running backs who have big roles. But I just don't really see his involvement to be that. I mean, seeing Brian Robinson, seeing as much involvement he did in week 2 tells me that they want to believe in Brian Robinson. And he looked good enough for me that if you unless you don't need to, I'd be okay cutting Antonio Gibson. So Dalvin Cook, under 6 fantasy points in both games so far. We know that the Jets offense is not what we thought it was when we were drafting him. Keep or cut?
I mean, this is another one. I'm kind of in the same boat as Antonio Gibson. I just think it's a little too early in the season to make a cut like that because God forbid something happens to Breece Hall or God forbid, Dalvin walks right into a great role. But that being said, Breece looks healthy and even the offense is not going to be great without Aaron Rodgers. I would cut Dalvin Cook before I cut Antonio Gibson. I guess I'll put it that way. But I'm still hanging on to Dalvin Cook just in case another week or two. And then if you have to scramble on the waiver wire, if there is an injury, then so be it. But I'm okay with Dalvin for another week.
Kyle said he has to hold on to Gibson in a 1 QB league that I rostered him in, but he also can't make any moves, so yeah, you have no choice. So they can't even give you a choice.
I'm gonna keep him still. Like all offseason, I said I was wary of Breece Hall, and my God, he looks pretty damn good so far. But I'm gonna hold on to him for like 2 more weeks. I know like the games haven't been that good for the Jets, but maybe they could find a game that they could lean on the running backs in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's another running back who I feel like you can't. I'll hold on to him for now, but it's probably another week or two to see how the production with Breece Hall increases over the. Again, this game was just a terrible game for all sides. I think Michael Carter actually led the team in snaps, or it was like a 3-way tie. It was really bad. But again, I'll give him another week or two before I consider cutting him. So Zach Charbonnet, the rookie, again, he's probably a later round pick, not really involved to this point. Very minimal terms of yardage. I think under like 20% of the snaps so far over the 2 weeks here. You keeping or cutting him?
Oh man, this one's tough. Honestly, it's a little bit harder because we don't know Zach Charbonnet. So say there even is an injury to Ken Walker. Like we don't know how great Zach Charbonnet is. It's all projection and speculation. So I don't know. I think in my heart, Zach Charbonnet is probably one of the most like elite sort of handcuff backups, but I don't know that. And so if you need to say you are dealing with,
so you just lost Barkley.
Yeah, say you just lost Barkley, you're dealing with injuries, you got to make a cut. I think you're okay cutting Zach Charbonnet because he's not going to get involved unless there's an injury. And know that once there's an injury, you're going to have to blow that fab on Zach Charbonnet again and just be okay with that.
I'm okay with cutting him. His upcoming schedule isn't that bad, but I do know there's a bye in week 5. So if you could cut him now and then pick him back up in the bye week, if he gets more run with the offense and stuff, I think that's a good route to take.
Yeah, I mean, with Zach Charbonnet, you have to know that he's just a handcuff. He's a clear handcuff. He's not involved in this offense. Maybe at some point down the road he is. But again, I can't. If your fantasy team needs to cut him, I'm willing to be okay with that. I think it's perfectly fine if you go and cut him. What about Quentin Johnston, the rookie wide receiver from the Chargers? Again, I thought this could be a really solid game for him, and it kind of turned into a really miniature game for him, honestly. I mean, very low. His snap count dropped. How do you guys feel about Quentin Johnston? You keeping or cutting?
I'm cool cutting him in redraft. I'm totally fine with that.
I'm good as well cutting him. Josh Palmer is running way ahead of him, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I am okay, unfortunately, cutting him too. I don't want to because we know the injuries to these top wide receivers, but if you need to, I mean, I completely understand. If you don't need to, I'd hold on to him still. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, under 6 fantasy points in both games so far this season here. Do you keep or cut Jackson Smith and Jigba?
Oh, I'm keeping JSN.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes, you keep JSN.
I'm
Hold on.
totally fine. Yeah, if you watch, he looks good. Yeah, he looks good. It doesn't always pop off right away for some of these guys, but he looks the part. He's getting targets. It's just, it's just a clogged wide receiver core right now. There's 3 really good wide receivers.
That's true. Rashad Bateman, also under 6 fantasy points in both games. Keep or cut?
I would cut him. I'm okay with that. I would try and maybe trade him, before you just
I don't know if anyone wants
before you maybe just cut bait with him. But I'm okay.
I don't think anyone wants Rashad Bateman right now.
I mean, I'm okay with cutting him. But it's just, I just don't think there's going to be a lot of passes, as many as we thought, with the new offense for the Ravens. And I just, you're going to give me 3-4 targets a game. I'm not super interested in that.
Right. Again, I'm going to cut him as well. Juju, under 6 fantasy points in both games. I think he played both games. Under 6 fantasy points in both games.
See ya. Get out of here, Juju.
Yeah,
Juju
is he's buns.
He is such definition of a roster clogger is Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes, I would let someone else handle that 7 to 10 point games for the rest of the year on their bench. I'd rather just go out and find upside plays. Chris Godwin, under 6 fantasy points in both games to start the year as well.
Keep him. I'm still keeping him. I think the touchdowns have gone to Mike Evans the first 2 weeks, but the targets are still there for Chris Godwin. So I'm okay. I'm okay with Chris Godwin. It's hard to find, because you're always trying to think like on the waiver wire, what's your replacement? It's hard to find, 8 to 10 consistent targets on the waiver wire. And that's what Chris Godwin's going to get. And so it sucks because you're watching Mike Evans get all the touchdowns right now, but it could switch where all of a sudden Chris Godwin touchdowns start falling his way.
Agreed. Fantasy football is all about regression. So Mike Evans has been otherworldly the first 2 weeks. I think Chris Godwin will have his time in the offense.
Right. And a message in the chat from Cameron.
Oh,
hey, Cameron, what's going on, man?
Yeah, what's up, coach?
In a while. Glad to have you in the chat. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to hit us up. So, last but not least, Cam Akers. Healthy scratch in week 2. Are we keeping or cutting Cam Akers? Speculation.
I am. So here's the thing. This is what stinks, because they're talking about trading him, and so this idea that he's going to get traded and get a workhorse role is in everybody's mind. But the Rams said the same thing last year and couldn't find a trade partner and couldn't get rid of him. So I don't know why this year all of a sudden it's changed and they think that they're all of a sudden going to find a trade partner. So Cam Akers was a healthy scratch. I don't think the Rams want him. I don't think the Rams want to use him.
They're talking about trading him. So
right, that's what I'm saying. But they talked about trading him last year, and no one wanted him. So I don't know if there's a market for him. So who are you going to trade him to?
The Giants.
The Giants.
The Giants. Now you could. You easily could. Now, not easily, but you could now. So I don't know. I would cut him because I don't think Cam Akers is really gonna figure it out via trade and go to another team and learn the playbook and get integrated fast and become this superstar. I just don't think he is. And so I'm more just frustrated that the Rams lied to us all off season to just week 2 do the same thing that they did last. It's like, don't lie to us. Just if you don't like the guy, don't like the guy. I don't know. Why are you giving us this rigmarole that you figured it out and you mended the bridge and he's your guy, and then week 2 all of a sudden he's a healthy scratch again. It's like, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, I'd still hold on for him for another week or 2, and then obviously what depends on what goes on over the next few weeks, then I would cut him if that's the case. But I'd hold on to him just to see what happens over the next few weeks. Now we have 6 contenders or pretenders, 6 players that are basically, we'd probably expect them to be as high as they are on the season, but do we expect them to continue this trend? Jordan Love, currently QB2, back-to-back 20-point games. Is he a contender or a pretender?
I would say contender. I don't know if he's going to, be this top 5 quarterback, but he's clearly a top 15 quarterback. I mean, he's looking good.
A big
And-
difference. That's a
right.
big
No. But I'm saying, like, I don't think he's like quarterback 2 is not like he's not quarterback 2.
So
But
he's like what would you say he's quarterback as?
okay, if Geno Smith was quarterback 8 last year. If he finishes in that realm, yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked. He
Okay.
he could have a Geno Smith type season. So top
Gotcha.
10, top 10 guy. But in 2 quarterback leagues, you're in totally in luck. Like you hit the lottery. And in single quarterback leagues, he's a very, very strong streaming option, in my opinion. Like if you're dealing with Joe Burrow right now, it's like, I don't know. I'm okay with throwing Jordan Love in there until Joe Burrow shows me something else.
I don't mean to come at you, John.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, you're fine.
QB 15, but he's a contender.
No, but I'm saying, I guess
I'm like,
that's my point. Like,
I don't know about that. That's
no. I guess my point is, like, I don't think he's this like top 2 world beating quarterback. Like, this is crazy. But if he does like what Geno Smith did last year and finishes as quarterback 7, 8, like, yeah, that's definitely in the realm of possibilities. He's doing this without Christian Watson. So, Christian Watson comes back, and I think he's totally fine.
Yeah. Jibs.
I don't think he'll stay within like that top 5, top 6, but I can see John's point being QB8. He's kind of reminding me of like Ryan Tannehill a few years back, where he would have those hyper efficient games while throwing like 240 yards or so. But he's getting all the touchdowns. You can't hate on that. So, like I said, regression to the mean. I could see him not having a couple of good games, but he's definitely in good graces. Highest passer rating in the league too this year so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, I obviously love that he's doing very well. I'm gonna say pretender though, to be honest, though, in this situation here. I mean, he's been just too efficient with everything he's done so far in this season here. The fact that he's got 6 touchdowns on the season, which is great. He's made his case really well, but he's under 250 yards in back-to-back games, under 200 yards against the Falcons this week, in a game that was necessary for him to ball out a little bit, to be honest. And I think Kyle said it best here. He sucked in the fourth quarter. I mean, he's been good, but I don't think he's QB2 good. So I'm going to say pretender on him. So Brian Robinson currently sits at RB2. Big week 2, obviously game that kind of helped prop him up. He had a decent week 1. Okay, like 9 points. This game he obviously had like 20 plus points. Is he a contender or a pretender for the season?
I think he's a pretender in the sense of I have a top 10 back. I think he's a contender as in he took over that backfield and you're going to be able to start him every week. Whereas, preseason, it was a little bit more iffy. Like, is it going to be Brian Robinson? Is it going to be Antonio Gibson? Like, I think we now know it's Brian Robinson, but I don't think he's this good. I think he's, I think he's a bit of a pretender. I don't think he's, a top 5 back. I think the offense is looking good through the first 2 weeks, but I don't think they're going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. Yeah, I think he's a bit of a pretender, but you're happy if you have Brian Robinson because the fears of Antonio Gibson cutting into any of his work should be gone. I think he's going to be a very solid flex option week in, week out.
I'm going to go with pretender as well. I could see him more as like a high-end RB2 as the season progresses. They didn't really play anybody, so I really can't just like give him like that slap of confidence either. But hey, man, these do looking like a bell cow. Now he carries both games, getting about 80 yards. The touchdowns help, so we'll see if like he becomes touchdown unlucky, having Gibson score some touchdowns, maybe Hal run one in or stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes, but definitely pretender on my eyes.
Yeah, he's definitely a pretender as well in this situation here. Great that he's taken the workload, even though him and Gibson kind of split snaps this week, even though the week before that it was Brian Robinson who had more snaps. But I just don't see this. I just don't see him having big games like this consistently. He did a lot of work in the receiving game, and I don't think that's going to be consistent enough. He's got a tough schedule down the road here that is going to make things a lot harder for him to be this efficient, especially in on these touchdowns. So I'm going to say pretender too. Let's see, what did Kyle say here? Kyle said, Love played does give me more confidence in buying the Packers weapons. I mean, we do like that. I bought Jalen Reed for a second in a 14-man league. I like that. Start 11. It's a good play. I think I
like that a lot too, yeah.
Good upside for that. I like that. Kerryon Williams, RB3 on the season. Has the role now. Is he a contender or a pretender?
Oh man. This one's tough because he's with Sean McVay. We watched even Cam Akers with a hobbled Rams offense towards the end of last year get a ton of work and be productive and be a top 10 guy. And so it looks like if Kyron Williams is going to be the guy for them and get all the work and get 15 to carries and another 6-7 targets, and Puka Nacua looks legit, and so this offense doesn't totally suck. There could be scoring opportunities. I'm buying into Kyron Williams at least for this season. I don't know about a dynasty thing. I'm not giving up picks.
For this season. Yeah.
I'm not giving up picks for him in there, so I'm going to say he's probably a pretender in like dynasty formats. But I think redraft, like he to me is one of those guys that could be a contender. He could finish the year as a top 10 back and be really, really good. And that's kind of how I'm treating it. And so again, like RB3, like that's probably crazy. But if he's, Jamal Williams was RB7 last year. Like it's not like out of the realm of possibility that someone random pops up based on volume and touchdowns. They just pop up as a top 10 guy. And so Kyron Williams could be that guy this year where he's like, oh, I'm just going to get every goal line work. I'm just going to get all the love around the end zone and, score 15 times this year. And it's like, okay, that'll get you vaulted into the top 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with contender as well. Hey man, like I picked him up in a bunch of leagues last week, and I was scared shitless to start him against the 49ers. And this guy went off for 28 points against the 49ers, a vaulted defense. If he could do that against the 49ers, I think he has some pretty good standing power for the rest of the season. Even if Cam Akers leave, woo, forget about it.
Yeah. No, I'm going to say contender as well. I don't like that his yards per carry is 3.6 currently right now. But we do love touchdowns, and the fact that the Rams don't really have anyone that's going to take the top over for defense, where they're going to have a big game and a big throw down field. It's like, oh God, a 60-yard touchdown. Like they have underneath players. Players are going to get you 10, 15 yards downfield. They're going to get close to the end zone. And then Williams seems to have been able to come in and just do work. And the fact that he saw 10 targets in this game, I do like that moving forward because I do think that Matthew Stafford has mobility issues that's going to force him to dump the ball more times than he wants to, especially against good pass rushers. And they do have a lot down the stretch here. So they're going to need a guy like Williams to do that. And I think that will even keep him in this top tier as well. All right, the big one here is teammate Puka Nacua, the rookie wide receiver here, 35 targets over the first 2 games. Are we talking contender or pretender, guys?
I'm all in. I think he's a contender. I think 35 targets over 2 games. Targets are an earned stat. He's getting open. He's being productive with his targets. It's not like he's gotten 35 targets and has like 5 receptions. It's like these guys has a ridiculous catch percentage. He's 2 games in a row now over 100 yards. I think while Cooper Kupp's gone, they're just going to keep feeding him. So, again, you're going to give me 12, 13, 14 targets in a Rams offense with Sean McVay. I think that person's going to be productive. The question is when Cooper Kupp comes back, how do things shake out? But even with Cooper Kupp coming back, I think there's enough, room for Puka to be valuable for fantasy the rest of the season. And even in dynasty formats, I'm buying in on Puka. So I like him. I like what I've seen the first 2 weeks. Obviously, every year we kind of have one of these rookies that really sort of takes everyone by a little bit of a surprise. And I know the drum beat for Puka was getting strong at the end of the year, but yeah, he looks legit. He looks legit.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Jibs.
I think he's a contender as well. I don't see obviously his role will change when Cooper Kupp comes back, but I still think he'll have standing power in the offense. Maybe they just get Van Jefferson out of there, but he's just I feel like the second coming of Julian Edelman with all these short little flare routes, and he just does the work with them. So maybe he doesn't get 17 targets, but if he can be close to a good 8, 9, the way Matthew Stafford's throwing them, I'm on board.
Yeah. 17 this past week was a bit of and what did he have? I think it was 18 targets. Crazy, right?
20.
He had 20. Awesome. 20 targets. That's insane.
I'm gonna say I will say contender. I am nervous about Kupp coming back though, so it really makes me want to say pretender because I don't know what the target share is. But if he's going to still I mean, Tutu Atwell is seeing 8 or 9 targets a game still. I mean, if he sees that role, if Kupp takes his role back and he takes Tutu Atwell's role, slides it right back into there, that's still almost 10 targets a game here. I'm still going to give that to him each and every single week. I like that for him. So I'm going to say contender as well for that. All right, let's move on here pretty quickly here. Mike Evans, wide receiver 2 on the season. Contender or pretender?
I'll say pretender, just because we talked about it with Chris Godwin. I just think there's a lot of touchdowns going his way right now. And so, and we've seen this with Mike Evans. And then he'll go on a stretch where he's, gets no touchdowns. He might have, 2 catches for 20 yards. And it could easily happen. Just right now, you're in a hot streak with Mike Evans. You got to ride it. And then eventually it'll cool off. And, so I think he's a bit of a pretender, but it's fun. It's fun that Baker's looking good. Yeah, it's good for him.
Get another 1,000 yards.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll go pretender. I don't think he'll finish as a top wide receiver 1 this season, but
yeah,
he probably will make me eat my words because he's playing the Eagles next week.
We'll have to wait and see on that. Yeah. Monday Night Football. But I'm going to go pretender too. I just don't think he keeps up this consistency. I mean, the touchdowns help propped him up, obviously, to this fantasy production. And like John said, he goes through dry spells very often in fantasy for us. So I'm going to say pretender. And then last but not least, Nico Collins, wide receiver 7. Contender or pretender?
I'm very biased. I like Nico Collins. I liked Nico Collins in his Michigan days. I just like the prospect. And I always said, look, if Houston could figure out this quarterback thing, I think Nico Collins is a good wide receiver. And they brought in CJ Stroud. I don't think CJ Stroud is like playing at this all-time high level, but he can at least move the ball better than what Texans have had in the past. And Nico Collins is showing that he is a big body with some speed. So I don't think he's, a contender in the sense of a top 10, wide receiver, but, wide receiver 15, 16, like could happen. It could easily be in his range of outcomes. And for someone who you grabbed literally last pick of your draft or for super late in Dynasty, that's great. So I like what I'm seeing out of Nico right now.
Chips.
I'm going to go pretender as well. I think he's doing fantastic for the start of the season. I don't think he'll finish a top 12 wide receiver. You still have other options that could kind of catch fire, like Tank Dell. You still have Robert Woods there, albeit he's like 30-something years old man. But I just think there will be some variance to his offense. There won't be weeks where he's just killing it and being like the stud number 1 receiver. And obviously, CJ Stroud can have some more rookie woes as long as the season progresses. So I don't think it's here to stay. But I'm loving his start so far.
Yeah, I'm loving this too, but I am going to say contender on this one. I think I've liked Nico Collins since he's come in the league. He's dealt with injuries his first 2 years, and he's obviously dealt with bad quarterback play. Davis Mills was not a quarterback that could elevate a passing offense. CJ Stroud is a pass-first quarterback here. He's not going to run a ton. The run game in Houston right now looks just dreadful back there. This is going to be a team that likely is going to be behind in a lot of games, and they have a very favorable schedule this season here. I could very well see Nico Collins hanging in there and seeing some of these other guys fade. I like Tank Dell too, but Nico Collins, I've been waiting for him to come out and be this team's wide receiver 1, and he's showing off right now. So I'm excited for Nico Collins to finish near this top 12 in terms of fantasy wide receivers this year. I think this could be his 3rd-year breakout that we don't see too often anymore in fantasy. So I'm going to go with that direction here. So, all right, before we get going to the next segment here, our friend Cameron asked us to quickly look at his team real quick here. Hey, fellas, 14-team PPR league. Joe Burrow, Bijan Robinson, Javonte Williams, Devonta Smith, Drake London, Dallas Goedert, Zay Flowers, benches B. Robinson, Elijah Moore, Zach Charbonnet, Jalen Warren, Zay Jones, and Marvin Mims. How do you grade this team, guys? How do you like it? This is for redraft this year, so.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, I think you're pulling your hair out at the Drake London pick at this point. That kind of stinks, but I get that at the time he looked like he could be a good value. But yeah, this team for 14 team, this is great. Like you're doing something right. Your team looks pretty good.
Yeah, I like it for a 14-team solid foundation. I'm right there with you with the Devontae Smith, Drake London, and Goddard mess. I had them on my team, and
So I do too.
it's boggling sometimes. But I do like some of his like bench pieces, like Brian Robinson, Zay Flowers to be in and out. You have the upside with Charbonnet, Warren injury, and then obviously just hold on to Marvin Mims and see how the season progresses.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty good team for a 14-man league. It's really good overall. I think you have some high hitters and unfortunately some low hitters too. But I think when your team is on it, it's going to be really good here. Just, obviously the whole Joe Burrow situation now, you need to make sure you find yourself a backup. I mean, if this is all your team is, Cameron, I mean, Zay Jones would probably be the drop for me personally right now. But your team's pretty good overall. You should hopefully make some noise this season. So especially in full point PPR. He started Zay Jones over Drake London. I told someone to do that too, so I understand your pain.
Cameron,
he did have 6 targets. So I feel so bad. Zay Jones had 6 targets, but that Jags offense looked terrible. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, good team overall. All right, let's head into the waiver wire talk here now. Last week, me and John, we said Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, both did really good. Clayton Tune not got his chance yet, but maybe one day soon. Running backs, Williams, Roschon Johnson, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Joshua Kelly, and Sean Tucker. I mean, we did pretty good on the running backs last week. Williams did good. Edwards and Hill did decent. Kelly got a starting job for 1 week, didn't do well with it, but job. Maybe next week too. Roschon Johnson is now the number 2 for sure, hopefully back there. And then Sean Tucker, he played a little bit more without Chase Edmonds, which is nice. Wide receivers, Puka Nuka obviously just went off. Romeo Dobbs didn't have the greatest week, but I still expect him to do well. Allen Robinson, Rashad Rashid, we'll find out tonight how they do. Josh Reynolds, like I said, did very well, 80 yards this past week and a touchdown. Rishi Rice didn't really get his chance in week 2. Nick Westbrook and Keene caught a touchdown. So if you had him and started him, you got yourself 10 points almost. And Bob Jefferson kind of just getting phased out of this Rams offense. Tight ends, Luke Musgrave didn't do that great. He did okay. Jay Ferguson caught a touchdown, so that's a borderline tight end no right there already. Kate Auden had a very mediocre week, and again, we'll find out about Hayden Hurst tonight. So hopefully some of these guys who we haven't talked about yet will do well. So, All right, so let's get into the quarterbacks here. Obviously, let's see. Highest people, Jordan Love's out there. I still wanted to get him, even though I call him a pretender. I still like his ability overall. If he continues to do what he's doing, he's worth a pickup. But John, I mean, you have Desmond Ritter as your QB1 pickup of the week. Tell us why.
Because I think, the first week with Desmond Ritter was really bad. And the first half of this week was really bad. But Desmond Ritter is I'm treating this as almost his rookie-esque season. And so I was worried that the first couple of weeks would come off to a slow start. But Bijan Robinson is starting to really show that he's an electric player. We know Kyle Pitts is big. Drake London is a great wide receiver that they don't like to utilize for some reason. Tyler Algier is a good running back. So the offensive pieces, the theory of why Desmond Ritter can be good is still there. Screen game to Bijan Robinson could go to the house at any time. Kyle Pitts is always a threat to score. So there will be very bad games with Desmond Ritter. I know that now. But there also will be some decent games. There'll be some usable games. So if you get in a good matchup or you find a situation where it could be a high-scoring affair, I think the Falcons have the weaponry to keep up. Obviously, they just showed it. So Desmond Ritter's not useless in 2 quarterback formats. And so I think that, again, you can pick him up for next to nothing. If he's out there, you could trade for him in Superflex leagues for next to nothing. And you're going to get it might not be the prettiest ride, but you'll at least get some spot starts when you need them.
Chips, you felt the same way about Ritter too?
Oh, yeah, and I was just looking forward to their next matchup. They're playing the Lions, who have a stingy run defense. The Falcons just seem to want to run the ball. So hopefully the Lions, being a potent offensive team, will allow the Falcons to actually pass like they did last week to keep up in the game. So I'm expecting the Falcons actually throw a little bit more, not that much more. And I think Ritter had 24 passes or something, but maybe close to 30.
32.
32. Oh, wow. They let him loose. Wow.
He uncorked it. Yeah.
So compared to week 1, I could see something like that happening again. And we probably could have a nice week for London and Pitts. Right. So I'm not opposed to Ritter.
Yeah. And nothing for nothing. 10 carries. So I'm not saying it's a ton, but it's at least somewhat of a floor. I think Desmond Ridder can bring some level of mobility. So I think the pick is not great, but it's serviceable.
I like it. And Jibs, you had Baker Mayfield as your number one. Tell us why.
He's playing the Eagles. The Eagles have allowed 340 passing yards per game and 3 touchdown passes per game. All right. Everybody. So Baker Mayfield will go up there and stroll in there and give his best performance. I think he'll be in a good play for next week. Especially if the Eagles secondary doesn't come back healthy as they were, because they were decimated completely last week.
Yes, they were. That's why Kirk Cousins had the game. And my number one, obviously, Matthew Stafford. I mean, just that, again, he hasn't really gone off yet, but he is going to eventually get Cooper Kupp back. And then we all know how Matthew Stafford has been with Cooper Kupp and how he kind of transformed him, rejuvenated his career a little bit there. So I do like Matthew Stafford as a bounce back to have some better games. So that's why he's my number one pickup. I mean, he's got good matchups the next 2 weeks against the Bengals and the Colts here. That they're going to they could air the ball out, and he could do very well in those matchups here. So I would be looking for Matthew Stafford as a guy to go and grab. Both me and John had Sam Howell. I think Derek Carr could be another option that you could get as well if you're looking for quarterbacks this week. A lot of the low-end quarterbacks have tough matchups in week 3, so there's not many streaming quarterbacks you could take. If you have somebody already, you should probably stick with them more than likely this week, if not. So running backs, again, it's not the greatest, but if the guys like Zach Moss, Devin A-Chain, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards are out there. Again, some of the guys we mentioned maybe last week, like Tank Bigsby, Jalen Warren, some of those guys, I know they're much higher percentage. Look for those guys first, obviously, because the waiver wire week is not that great outside of maybe 1 or 2 guys at that most. But John, I'll let you go first. I put Roschon as your number one. I don't know if that was your number one or not, but
yeah, that's a great number one. I think Roschon Johnson, the excitement about Roschon preseason was, as the season develops, how will his role grow? And every week he just seems to be getting more snaps, more carries. So I think as the season progresses, Roschon will just get, more and more acclimated into this offense. The only downside to me with Roschon Johnson right now is, A, you're going to get vultured by Justin Fields around the goal line, and B, this Bears offense is not looking superb. So I just get a little nervous that Roschon might get a lot of the work, but it won't be these highly usable, productive fantasy days, and that makes me anxious. But on the waiver wire, just give me guys who's getting a lot of snaps and touches, and I'll figure it out from there. So I'm okay with Roschon Johnson. I think he's a good pick.
I mean, I do expect him to see more involvement as the season goes on. It might take some time to get there, but I definitely think he is a must pickup guy that you should be stashing for the rest of the season right now. Jibs, you had Matt Breida as your number one this week. If you want to talk about Matt Breida, obviously him potentially starting week 3, obviously, as it seems.
Yeah, it's just the next man up mentality. I know if you're like me and have J.K. Dobbins on a bunch of your teams, you're just searching for another running back to pick up the slack, and Matt Breida should be that guy. I know he wasn't that good in the spot duties last year, but it's a new year, and he has an opportunity to take on some work. So I'm going to be picking up Matt Breida anywhere possible, especially if I have injured running backs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'd also look at, if you want to wait until after waivers hit, Gary Brightwell or even Eric Gray, the rookie running back from the Giants. Both these guys, I mean, Matt Breida is just kind of a speedster guy that just, he's nothing crazy, but one of these other guys might be more valuable to pick up in the long term if Barkley is to really miss 2 or 3 games. So you might want to wait until after waivers hit, and you can pick them up for basically nothing on the dollar. So especially if you play any fab leagues. So definitely would consider that move. My main, I guess we've gone through some of mine already, but Craig Reynolds is a guy that you should know and pick up. Actually, another name in that mix with that Detroit team is Zonovan Knight. He's on their practice squad right now for the Lions. And if Dave Montgomery is to miss this game, I really don't believe Jahmyr Gibbs is just going to see this gigantic workload. He would have gone it this past week if that was the case. But I don't think that's what the Lions want to do with him. So Craig Reynolds is kind of that, that Dave Montgomery back where he's just a decent back overall. He had games when he was starting at one point a couple years ago for this team here. Again, you could probably bid very minimal on getting a guy like Craig Reynolds or even Zonovan Knight. Zonovan Knight, we saw last year have 2 great games with the Jets that could be really good. So one of those guys could slip in as maybe not as a 1B, but the backup that actually sees some production in that offense there. So those are 2 other guys you could consider in this matchup. John, you have Salvan Ahmed. If you want to mention him a little bit.
I do. I mean, the groin injury stinks. Like, I don't think, obviously you don't want to pick up a guy or hang on to a guy if he's injured. So, but what I guess my biggest takeaway was from watching the game the other night. Before he was injured, he looks explosive. He looked like he was doing what we expected Devon Achane to do, is sort of come in and do these like big jet sweeps and these sort of splash plays. And I think Salvan Ahmed is someone who can do it. He's looked pretty shifty. But I would, now that he's injured and the groin injuries kind of popped up on these injury reports today, I'm a little off. But it's a good name to bring up, good name to mention, because I don't know what's going on with Devon Achane, why they haven't activated him, used him, any of this, but it could change now that he's banged up.
All right. Well, Achane played 2 snaps last night. He's working his way back. So, I mean, eventually I would hope that he gets more work. Just give you a little fun fact on your guy, though. In the first half of that game last night, Most played 23 snaps and Ahmed played 12. So he played about every other snap he got on the field and took a snap on the offense, which is obviously good if he does come back and this groin injury doesn't affect him really well. So, Jibs, you had Chuba Hubbard as your 3rd guy. If you want to break that down.
It's just looking down the road. He had solid efficiency week 1. I think he had 6.6 yards per carry on 9 carries. Miles Sanders had, I think, like 17, 18 carries and had like 4 yards per carry. Obviously, he had more carries, brings down the stat. But I just know Sanders, Carolina's using him like a workhorse, and he hasn't really done that during his career. I don't know if it's sustainable, but just to look down the road a little bit, we know Chuba Hubbard was pretty damn good in the stretch last year, and it's just like a stash candidate in case, because Carolina's not going to let the run him. I mean, Bryce Young just throw it all over the field. They're going to want to be conservative and run the ball. So it's just a running back to look out for, because as we see, at these running back options on the waivers, most of the backfields are already split, and what you're left over is with these 1B or these middling running backs. And I think Chuba Hubbard is probably one of the better 2s that's left on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and he plays tonight. We'll have to wait and see how that works. And he also played all the 3rd down snaps in week 1, so it's good to know as well. My fifth guy on the board was Tajay Spears. Again, he didn't see obviously more work than Derrick Henry again, because I didn't think that was sustainable. But he did see a few more touches in the offense here. 8 carries this week for 49 yards. That's pretty good. Over 6 yards a carry. I'd be interested to see as the season goes on how much work they give this guy to kind of give some rest off of Derrick Henry and not have him be a guy who sees 25 plus touches a game or carries at least a game, even though he can't handle that. But Tajay Spears should be able to continue to carve out a role in this offense that desperately needs some playmakers to get this offensive spark going. So,
yeah, I'm actually going to change my last one. I was scrambling to add Latavius Murray. So anyone listening, he's on there. He shouldn't be. Tajay Spears absolutely deserves to be on there over Latavius Murray. Tajay Spears looks really good, man. He looks really good. And we always think Derrick Henry's the guy. He's not going anywhere. And it's well, we say that, but this kid's running at a good clip, getting yardage. They keep giving him more and more carries every week. And so at some point, the legend of Derrick Henry does have to sort of fade away. And Tajay Spears looks very competent, very, very competent.
Yes, definitely. And again, if you guys are listening to us afterwards on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you might listen to us, obviously I'd always recommend checking out our YouTube channel where we have our visual presentation that we talk about these fantasy, because it breaks down a little bit more into detail here. We all didn't talk about each person because we all have the same people here. So we could talk about the same person 3 different times in 3 same ways. So there's a lot of fun things. Yes, Kyle, that's absolutely right. You did mention, I think Zonovan Knight would be worth adding.
Yep.
Yes, he does fit the Dave Montgomery replacement much better than Reynolds. I do like that. Yes. I didn't think about that until after I made this slideshow, but I do like the talk in there, Kyle. I like that. A couple other running backs you might consider is Jerome Ford to see how his production is after another week. Kendrick Miller's out tonight.
Yeah.
So he might not be as worth grabbing right now to see unless and you might want to wait on that. Ty Chandler could be interesting, especially if the team wants to move away from Alexander Madison. I feel bad for Madison. I know he got some pretty harsh comments after that Eagles game this past week.
That shit's disgusting.
Should never be like that for fantasy guys. It's just a game. But yeah, I mean, again, if the Vikings want to do their own thing and move on towards Ty Chandler, that could be worth a pickup themselves. So over to the wide receivers here now. John, I'll let you start first. I don't know if this was your order, but I put Isaiah Hodgins first up there for you. Yep. So if you want to mention him, I'll let you go through that motion.
Yeah, so Isaiah Hodgins, I think two reasons why I think Isaiah Hodgins should be a pretty highly sort of sought after guy. One, you have the injury to Saquon Barkley. So there's just some short yardage targets, some stuff that you can kind of open up, and they're going to need to move the ball. They're not going to run it as efficiently anymore. And also coupled with the end of last season with Isaiah Hodgins. The end of last season with Isaiah Hodgins, he looked good. He was one of the favorite targets for the Giants. Had a couple touchdowns, and I think the first week was pretty scary, but obviously the Giants' offense looks terrible. This week he got a little bit more involved. He started seeing some targets again, got some yardage, and so I think this is another one that as this season progresses, he could just see himself develop more and more into a role. I think he's worth the ad. I don't think it's the Giants pass catchers. It's not going to be pretty every week, but Isaiah Hodgins is out of the grouping. Isaiah Hodgins to me is the one that could sort of rise to the top.
I like it. I've really been rooting for the kid ever since last year, and he kind of went off, and he got his first really good game of the season here. So I'm hoping they can continue to do that with him. Jibbs, you had Josh Reynolds as your number one guy. If you want to break that down.
Oh, two touchdowns doesn't hurt, but he's just been electric for the Lions. He looks like the clear number 2 receiving option for the Lions without Jameson Williams being there. But I just like how he's a complimentary piece for Amon-Ra St. Brown while he soaks up those intermediate short routes. You see Josh Reynolds going long and deep, and he's catching everything that's pretty much going towards him. So till week 6 comes, I'm going to be keeping Josh Reynolds in that wide receiver 3 position on my fantasy lineups.
I like it. Again, he was one of mine last week for sure. So, and he is my number one. But the guy I'm going to talk about is Tutu Atwell here, guys. Tutu Atwell for the Los Angeles Rams. I said after week 1's performance, do it again, and then I'll start believing a little bit into you. And he did it. He did good. 7 for 77, not 100 yards, but 7 for 77 on 9 targets. That's what I want in a player to add to my roster. Someone who has the target share, someone's part of an offense where he's the number 2 currently right now. Well, again, that could change with Cooper Kupp comes back. We don't know exactly when that's going to really be. But until then, Tutu Atwell is number 2 on this team behind Puka Nacua, and he should be rostered at this point. He could fly in as a flex play. Like I said, the next 2 weeks for wide receivers are fantastic. Cincinnati and Indy. Tutu Atwell needs to be on your team, and you might be starting him over the next few weeks, something I don't think I would have thought of at the beginning of the season here. So he's definitely a great ad in my books right now. So just see, John, we'll go back to you. Devontae Parker. You have Devontae Parker up here. You know what? We're going to go to Chase Claypool for you because I want to talk about
This is so funny. I was just
going to. You told me he was cut, but I want to know.
No. So you're right. No. Again, I'm going to give a little peek behind the curtain to the listeners. I was scrambling at work today. Today was a crap day for work. I was super busy. And so I will be very honest. This wide receiver list came together pretty quick before the show. I don't want to even endorse Chase Claypool. I put him on there. I lied. I don't want to even endorse him.
Oh my God.
I don't want to endorse him. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with Marvin Mims. I'm gonna go with Marvin Mims because Chase Claypool. Look at the reason why I had him in the first place. The story came out that he apologized to the coaches, he apologized to the team pre-game, and they kind of did this whole sort of BS, and goes out and has a decent game. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe things are gonna turn around, but I don't want to fall for that trap. So I'm not even gonna. So I'm gonna say Marvin Mims. I just think Marvin Mims, we liked him pre-draft process. We didn't love the landing spot, but he showed in one game how electric he can be. and players like that don't just come around very often. So I'll take the chance that Marvin Mims, even if he only gets 3-4 targets a game, you hope he breaks a big one because he can. Chase, I don't think obviously can. So I apologize to all the listeners. Don't pick up Chase Claypool. Keep him on waivers.
I like it. Jibs, you had Jalen Reed here as your third option. Why Jalen Reed?
Well, just because the hamstring injury with Christian Watson, they're taking him along slow, it seems. And I just like how he showed his ability in being a red zone threat. Like, I know they were without Aaron Jones and whatnot, but I think he's an interesting third receiver for the Packers that we could build up on. I wouldn't be starting him next week, given how the injury report lies, but you definitely should keep an eye on him and hold him.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good move. I like the usage they gave him in this matchup this week here. They kind of used him all over the field, whether it was in the run or in the pass. They kind of moved him around like a true weapon for the offense here. So I'm intrigued to see if he continues to see more work as the season goes on, because we don't really know when Christian Watson's going to come back. Could be week 3, could be a couple weeks from now. So we'll see about that. My next guy is Tank Dell. I'll be real quick with Tank Dell. 7 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown this past week here. I like what I was able to see out of him. Again, he is a smaller guy, so I don't know how well he's going to hold up week to week and how well that, CJ Stroud's going to throw over 300 yards every single game. But it was encouraging. He definitely should be considered. And I'll kind of mix him and Bob Woods up a little bit together too. Both these guys should probably be added to the bottom of your bench right now. Bob Woods, he's back-to-back with 19 targets over the first 2 games. Again, that could go down as the season goes on. But again, if you're looking for wide receiver depth right now, both these guys should be added, because I keep saying to you guys, they have a good schedule and they're going to likely be coming back in behind games. They're going to need the wide receivers to step up. Both Bob Woods and Tank Dell should be definitely rostered added at this point. All right. And John, if you want to just quickly go over both Tolbert and Brandon Johnson real quick.
Sure. Jalen Tolbert to me is I'm kind of betting on this Brandon Cooks injury being bigger than it is, and so I think Brandon Cooks might miss some time. And then you have Michael Gallup, who never really developed into anything more than a rotational wide receiver 4 for a team. So there could be opportunity for Jalen Tolbert to sort of develop and get some run here. And your opposite CeeDee Lamb with a team that I think has, not a lot of pass catching options. So Jalen Tolbert, if Brandon Cooks misses time, Jalen Tolbert could develop into a serviceable wide receiver 2 for this team. And that's valuable to have. So this is more of a bet on Brandon Cooks missing extended time.
I like it. And Brandon Johnson real quick.
Brandon Johnson, another one. I think this is just my attitude is anytime there's big explosive players on the waiver wire, you grab them because you never know what's going to happen. So if you're going to go, 3 catches for 2 scores and whatever it was, 90 yards, whatever he had the other day, it's like, yeah, it might not be often that happens, but it's better than hanging on to like a Van Jefferson where that's never going to happen. And so, at least Brandon Johnson, there's the chance. And if there is an injury in front of him and he does start seeing 6-7 targets a game, you're like, wow, now I get an explosive player who's seeing volume. This is great. Versus hanging on to guys, again, Michael Gallup, we just talked about him, hanging on to the Juju Smith-Schuster, these sort of like roster clogging guys. It's like, I'll take a chance at a guy who's, obviously big play, electric, and then maybe the volume comes.
I like it. Jibs, you had Devontae Parker as your last guy. If you want to go through him real quick.
From what I saw, he was the leading receiver for the Patriots yesterday. Combined with the Juju reporting, how bad he looks, and the team's not high on him, I'm just going to go with the guy who's been there for the last year and change, or 2 years, and he even played 100% of the snaps last night. Mm-hmm. And I find that hard to believe for a Bill Belichick offense. So if he's going to be doing that on a weekly basis and Mac Jones is playing all right, better than he did last year in between from that first year, I'll buy into Devontae Parker. Would you say he was like 4% rostered?
Yeah, very low. Yeah, I didn't expect him to be that low, but he is. So, and my last guy, Calvin Austin. We obviously know Deontay Johnson is definitely out 4 games. So he's going to slide in that slot role, and I'm very intrigued. Again, if he doesn't play good tonight, I mean, it might not be the game to decide if he's worth rostering because it is a tough matchup against the Browns. But there are probably better matchups down the road for a guy like Calvin Austin to explode. He was very explosive in the preseason, and if he slides into that slot role, I'm intrigued a little bit, and I think he might be worth adding to your roster. Maybe at the end, your last pick, maybe right after waivers go through and pick him up and see what happens over the next few weeks because he's explosive. So. And a couple of options, obviously Donovan Peoples-Jones, Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, Jonathan Mingo, all the Carolina Panthers wide receivers that are on rosters right now, and Jalen Hyatt. Just people to keep in mention. Again, some higher guys, Rashad Rashid, Sky Moore, definitely should keep their eyes on them. There's going to be a lot of players and for the wide receivers probably dropped this week, so keep your eye on who actually gets dropped because I think they will be people who get dropped this week that you might want to add. And then last but not least, the tight end position here, guys. John, you had Cade Otton again as your first tight end. If you want to break that down real quick.
Yep, Cade Otton. I feel like it's the same story with Cade Otton every time we bring his name up. He's getting 4 targets a game, 5 targets a game. It's tight ends. That's useful. I don't think all these touchdowns are just going to be bombs to Mike Evans all season. So there will be some sort of touchdown slide over to Cade Otton's way. But yeah, just an athletic guy who's involved in the offense, plays a ton of snaps, and won't goose you. So that's kind of what you're looking for with a streaming tight end, and that's I think what Cade Otton is.
Yeah, he definitely has a streaming value to him. So, Jibs, you had Zach Ertz. Tell us about Zach Ertz a little bit.
He's basically the second leading receiver for the Dobbs-led Cardinals. I know he's been relegated to short area targets and he's splitting time with Trey McBride, but he seems to be like a low-end tight end PPR cheat code for some reason. So that's why I'm going to buy into him. Otherwise, I'm just going to be looking at Jake Ferguson, a guy who's third in his team behind Lamb and Pollard. And you know how Dallas loves their tight ends. And hopefully we can actually get a game where Dallas offense is tested and not blowing some teams out, so they actually have their offensive weapons perform throughout the game instead of getting pulled or splitting duties with someone else.
And I hate how these Cowboys always have such an easy schedule, and they're like, "Oh, we're their shit." My tight end one still is Jake Ferguson. I had Luke Musgrave last week, but Jake Ferguson's my tight end one. Again, they play the Cardinals this coming week here, and it should be a really good matchup for if you're streaming tight ends. He caught a touchdown. He still saw a bunch of targets. Didn't do much with them, but saw a bunch of targets still, and he's still the top tight end on this team here. So I'm going to continue to go towards his direction here, and a matchup that's easier, a matchup that favors favorable for tight ends, unlike last week, and go down that direction here. So he's another guy I want. And then just a couple guys with name off here. John Househall had Logan Thomas. I had Luke Musgrave, Hayden Hurst, Caden Grayson, Tyler Conklin, Jawan Johnson, all guys that can be streamable tight ends at this time here that you could go out and pick up. So that is going to include our waiver wire segment tonight, guys, and everything else that we did. We feel like we did so much in this hour, which is fantastic. That's what I like to do is get as much information out to you guys as possible in an hour span. So I do love that. John, is there anything you want to mention before we get going tonight, buddy?
Nope. Subscribe to the YouTube. We're cruising. We got like 8 new subscribers the other day. That's fun.
If you're listening,
tune in on Thursdays. The chat always goes crazy with start sit questions, and so that's a fun show. Let's go. So it's hopefully I'll tell you what I do need. I'm going to say a prayer on this podcast. I need my boy to go, Chris Olave, to score 28 points in the FTLS tonight, and I win. So wow. I'm in someone could really get me out of a pickle. I'd be happy. But other than that, I'm ready for Thursday's start sit in week 3.
Love it. Jibs.
Air Lave.
Let's go.
Well, I guess say good luck to you guys with your last 2 games in week 2. If you're on an 0-2 start to your season, just keep your head high. There's still room. There's still time for you to recover. And the best way to recover is listening to us here at the Fantasy News.
Love it. Guys, absolutely, guys. Thank you all for listening. Kyle, appreciate you always jumping in, my friend. We love having you jump in the show. We always love that. Again, guys, continue to give us a follow. Again, we're on every Monday and Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to come in, join the chat, ask your fantasy questions, whether it's start sits, trades, waiver wire pickups. That's what we're here to do, guys, to help you guys win championships. And you can go to our YouTube channel at Coaches Fantasy. Like I said, if you're not listening visually, you should. It's a lot of fun. We put up a lot of great PowerPoint slides here that make it more fun and visual for you to learn and understand fantasy. And of course, you can always go and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those fun things as well. And if you want to ask any fantasy questions while we're not live, go to our Twitter page, Coaches Fantasy. I'm more than happy to answer any fantasy questions, start sits, whatever. We always do that every Sunday. I always throw in there that if you want to ask any questions, hit us up. I do have our Sunday show that I do now for about 30 minutes, go through every team real quickly and answer any fantasy questions I might have. It was a lot of fun this past week. I had a lot of people join in. And so enjoy the rest of your week 2, guys. See you for week 3 in a few days. Take care and have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of